Hello and welcome to The Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis and this is the podcast where you'll hear from trailblazing women in sport who are literally knocking down barriers and challenging the status quo for women and girls everywhere. What can we learn from their journeys as we explore some of the key issues around equality in sport and beyond? I'd like to start with a big thank you to our partners Sport England, who support The Game Changers through a National Lottery Award. My guest today is professional boxer Caroline Dubois, youth Olympic champion, world youth champion, 4 times European youth champion, Team GB Olympian, and now IBO lightweight champion. Caroline's a pioneering female athlete with a stellar professional record of 8 wins, no defeats and 5 knockouts. Known for her immense power and explosive punches, Caroline's incredibly popular with fans and already a real name in the sport. So Caroline, can we start by talking about this weekend's fight? Firstly, huge congratulations. What a result for you. How are you feeling now?
Yeah, it was a great result and I'm very happy with the win. Getting the win is the most important thing and it just pushes you on to the next goal. Yeah, I'm very happy that I was able to get the IBO belt and a lot of experience gained.
Absolutely. And you waited a long time to get that for the first world title fight, but how did it actually feel in the ring in London on Saturday night?
No, it felt good. Being in the ring, in the professional ring, as many people will tell you, is very different from being in the sparring ring or the amateur ring. It's very different. It's a very different intensity. It's a very different look. It's a very different perspective. And I'm still getting used to that. I'm still getting used to getting comfortable in the ring. And hopefully, I felt like this time was probably the most comfortable I felt. And I think it's only going to get better.
And there's been a lot of talk, hasn't there, about your next fight and potentially you're wanting to fight Katie Taylor. For those not familiar with boxing, and you're the first current professional boxer I've had on the podcast, but can you explain a bit more about how that process works in terms of who you're next able to fight? So even if you want to fight for title fights, there's obviously a process to go through. So how does that work?
Yeah, so there's a process that you have to go to as a professional boxer. There's 4 major belts, and Katie has all of them. I've got one of the IBO belt, but she has all the other belts. And if I wanted to fight for those belts or get a shot at any of those belts, I'd have to go through her. But currently, she's got a rematch with Chantal Cameron. She lost the first fight, and she's fighting Chantal Cameron. And they're going to be fighting at a heavier weight division. So I have to wait for that to happen. Depending on how that goes, whether she wins, whether she loses, hopefully she comes back down in weight to my weight and decides to defend her belts. If she doesn't want to do that, hopefully we can put pressure on the belts organizations, the people who are running the belts, to vacate a belt, and then I'll be able to fight for one.
It's an interesting kind of world when you're not used to that, really, in terms of people having it and holding it. And I guess there aren't championships in the way there are, we would expect with World Championships or Olympic Games. There aren't certain times a fighter holds on to that. Would you consider changing weights to have the chance to progress in other belts, or is that the weight that you're at now?
Definitely I would consider, but it's unfortunate because the weight above 140, the girl who Katie Taylor's fighting, Chantal Cameron, has got all the belts at that weight as well. So it's the same sort of situation. At 140 and 135, all the belts are tied up. The next weight division is 147 and the belts are pretty much tied up there. So, women's boxing, it isn't that deep. We haven't got as many faces, as many names. So the belts tend to all hold in 1 or 2 people's hands. And that's the situation we're just going through. We're just waiting. Of course, if an opportunity came up for a massive fight at a heavier weight, 140, 147, I think, I'll be crazy not to take it. So, I'm just waiting for whatever comes up and continuing to learn, continue to grow, continue to get better, and waiting for whatever comes my way. So when the opportunity comes, I'll be ready.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? It's kind of fascinating as well, I guess, from someone from slightly outside. My dad was a boxer, actually, but I probably wasn't as close to an amateur boxer. But it's been interesting to kind of follow and see how the women's kind of categories and the opportunities are different to the men's. You're clearly very ambitious and kind of confident from the interviews I've seen. Has that always been your approach in boxing and more generally in life?
I'd say in boxing I've always been confident. I feel like, for some reason, some crazy reason, God has given me this opportunity. My skill, my talent, all of that is God-given, and I have to take the time to appreciate that and respect that and let that be known. So in the ring, when I step in the ring, I feel like that's the time when I'm the most confident, the most able, the most, comfortable. Outside of the ring, I'm still trying to catch up.
I like that's very honest. If I could take you back to your childhood, and you came from a big family, so can you tell us a little bit more about life growing up?
Yeah, I came from a big family, a very sporting-oriented family. My dad, Caroline Dubois, who obviously is boxing as well, and I have two other brothers, and they all boxed. And it was very sports-oriented family, and boxing was forefront, the most important thing, and something that we all strived and trained towards it. I took up a lot of time in our lives.
And you started at a time when all competitive boxing clubs and the Olympic boxing competitions were exclusive to men. So what was your motivation at the time?
I actually don't know. When I started, I was 9 years old and there was no Olympics. There was no amateurs. Well, there was amateurs, but there was no any goal towards in the amateurs. At the time, there was Layla Ali, and she had just won a world title. And I know she had become pretty successful at as a professional. And so I guess when I started, she was just somewhere that I was vaguely aiming towards. But it was until 2012 when the Olympics happened and Katie Taylor turned up, Nicola Adams turned on the scene, Kasha Shields and Natasha Jonas, these girls all turned up, that I was able to say, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. That's where I want to aim. And I think that those girls before me for giving me that shot, that opportunity, that goal.
It's so true, isn't it? As we look to the others that kind of made that pathway too, as you are now for other young girls coming through. Because there were, as you say, some all-girl amateur boxing clubs when you were starting out, but that wasn't the path that you chose. So you went to fight, I think, was it the Repton Amateur Boxing Club as a girl? So how was that experience and how were you able to fight there as a girl?
So yeah, there were female boxing clubs, but they weren't very serious. They were very no sparring, no contact, it wasn't very serious, not very intensive. Not what I wanted, I wanted to box. I didn't want a female box. I wanted to box. And I guess my dad realized that and he took me to the boys' gym, Repton Amateur Boxing Club, but it was a boys' club, so we had to pretend to be a boy. I said my name was Colin, and I joined the club, and it all kicked off from there. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, walking into the gym. It was amazing. It was very good. It was everything that I needed at the time, and it was great.
It's interesting, isn't it? So I have had the good fortune to talk to lots of professional footballers, but many of whom, similar stories, Rachel Yankee and others who cut their hair short, pretended to be boys, in order to get the chance to play at that top level too. So I guess when you're in a football team, not almost you could be lost within a team, but you kind of think you're one of many. But actually to go and box in a gym and to position yourself as a boy, that really is something. So what happened? How did that end in terms of their finding out you were a girl in the gym?
So basically what happened was they got me a fight and I would have had to so when you have a fight, you have to see the doctor and you have to get a medical done. And obviously, that would have been pretty catastrophe. So we moved gyms. We went to Del Youth. And instead of saying that I was a boy, I said I was a girl. My name's Caroline. I want to join. I've been boxing at Repton for so long. I've been sparring the boys, so it will be no problem. And I just said, just give us a chance. Let me show you what I can do. And if you like what you see, then let me join. And if not, we'll move on. And I sparred and he said, come in Tuesday, because I surprised him and opened his eyes to my ability and he just accepted me and took me in.
That's brilliant, isn't it? Do you think if your family had been involved in other sports or athletics or football, you might have taken up a different sport? Do you think it is almost like your family's love of a sport that drove you to that?
Yeah, I did do running. I did swimming, I did gymnastics, I did hurdling, I did loads of different sports. So I definitely, I enjoy sports. It's fun, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. You get to challenge yourself, but there was something different with boxing. I don't know why. That's why I said it's crazy that this is what chose me. And I'm just grateful that God has given me this opportunity because, I could have been good at anything and it was boxing that I was good at. It was boxing that really caught my eye and gave me that drive and I was special at it. I would have been good at all other sports, but boxing I was special at.
Yeah, absolutely. I read a lovely piece about one of your ancestors, Sylvia Dubois, who was an African-American slave in the 18th century who won herself freedom as a bare-knuckle fighter. Can you tell us a little bit more about her story?
Yeah, so Sylvia Dubois, she was obviously a slave, and she was being very ill-treated by, the slave mistress. And back in the day, it was very hard for, them to get respect and give them what they wanted or what they deserved. And I guess, it just all boiled over. And one day she just fought back and attacked, the slave mistress that was mistreating her and abusing her. And she fought back and, beat her up. And instead of, getting lynched or killed, which would have been is the standard as back in the day. If you fight back, if you look at someone in the eye, they gave her freedom and they gave her, a place to stay and gave her a home. So, she was able to literally fight for her freedom, fight for her respect. She stood her own. She didn't let anyone tell her and dictate her life.
And how much does the thought of her as a strong, independent, woman in your heritage inspire you as well too? It's a really powerful story, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's an amazing story. It's a story that isn't just spoken for me. It speaks for, loads of Black women in America and England that are not given the respect, not being treated like women and not being treated with the same respect that other races are given. That being strong, being able to fight for yourself is not a masculine thing. It's a thing that we've been doing for all our lives. You can trace it back from the beginning of time. We've been doing it. We've had to do it. And, we're powerful women, and we fight for our own. We fight for our families. We fight for our kids, and that's an amazing thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the idea that you've got that almost that fighting spirit in the family DNA as well too. When you look across your siblings and the whole family there. In 2018, you received Sports Aid's One to Watch award, and you were named BBC Young Sports Personality of the Year in 2019. And BBC's Mike Costello said of you, "I'm tempted to call Caroline Dubois the best female boxer I've ever seen." So did that at the time add more pressure, do you think, for you to perform, or did it just kind of boost your confidence?
No, it didn't add pressure. It's weird. I don't feel pressure when people say things like that. It just makes me feel wanted to train harder, because now I don't want to let them down. And I know how good I am. I train every day in the gym. I spar boys, I spar women, bigger than me, older than me, stronger than me. And I know how I hold my own. So I got that belief in me. It's just like when people say that, I'm like, they're just reassuring me and letting me know that I'm on the right path and I'm doing the right thing, that people are taking notice. And it makes me want to train harder. That, I don't let anyone down. I don't make them have to talk back on their words and stuff.
Yeah, regret what they said at all. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You live up to all those expectations. That's fantastic to hear. And I guess going back in terms of your progress through to where you are today, you moved to Sheffield to train with the GB team. So what was the process from being a young female boxer to getting you into that GB squad? I imagine that was super competitive.
Yeah, it was incredibly competitive. Competitive is the exact word, is what it was. Basically, when I was 15 to 18 years old, you fight kids that are your own age. And as soon as you get to 19 years old, you're senior and you can fight anyone, any age. You can go to the Olympics and stuff like that. And so when I started to turn over from youth to senior, I started to get scouted by the GB team, which is where, we go to the Olympics. That's the Olympic national team. And they were looking for, prospects and people that could potentially go to Tokyo. And so I started to get scouted because I had so much success as a youth. I won the Europeans 5 times, the Worlds, the Youth Olympics. I won everything, basically. And so I got scouted and I got brought up into the GB team. And it all kicked off from there. There was a massive race between me and 5 other girls to get on the Olympic team and to be able to get that chance to punch our tickets into the that Olympic play.
I was going to ask you about that. How tough it was to move away from family and friends and to move to a whole new place in Sheffield where you're training, and then also how intense that environment must be, where you, as you've said, you're training and living with the same girls that you're competing with for a place to represent the country. So, how does that feel for anyone that's not been in that kind of environment?
Yeah, it was very intense. It was very competitive. It was very hard. Every day you wake up, we get up at let's say 7 o'clock. We weigh in. You go running. Then you come back, you eat, you sleep if you want. You have S&C, you come back and then you spar or do boxing in the evening. And every single session, the running, the S&C and the sparring, you're getting judged and you're getting compared to those other girls. Every time you step on the scales, if the numbers aren't right, you've got 5 other girls who are coming in with the numbers being right. And it's very competitive because I was the youngest on the team and I was just feeling like I was very up against it, and I was I was very immature, and I realized how immature I was when I started to be surrounded by adults and girls who were 20, 29 and 27, and they were taking the sport so seriously. You know, I was so naturally gifted in terms of the boxing, but the other side of it, the diet and the making the boxing a lifestyle, I still wasn't used to that. You know, it just came so naturally to me that I didn't have to worry about those things. But as soon as I started hitting a certain age, I had to start worrying about those things because other girls, they were showing me what I needed to. I had to be good and all across the board, not just in the boxing ring. I had to be good in my boxing as a lifestyle. I had to be good on the track. I had to be good on the S&C. And it was just very competitive. You can imagine every day you spar, you have to spar good because, you know, the coaches, they're taking notes and they're saying, who am I going to send to the Olympics? And every time you spar, every time you run, every time you do S&C, it's just very, very competitive.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It is tough, as you say, kind of coming in so young to that environment, but learning that opportunity to learn from others around you too. You mentioned that you obviously went to the Youth Olympic Games in Argentina, I think that was, in 2018 and won gold there. So what was that experience like?
It was amazing. It was like a dress rehearsal for the real thing. And that team, 1,000 kids went and to the real Olympics, only 3 people were able to go. And that was just very eye-opening for me. And the fact that I was able to meet one of those people was very eye-opening and very privileged. And it just showed me all the hard work and all the dedication I had put into the sport. And the Youth Olympics was great. It was a really, really, really good experience for me. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, they had the whole setup. It was like the Olympics. We had our own little village. We had the bubble. We had the tournaments, the different sports and athletes. It was great. It was really, really cool.
That's fantastic, isn't it? I was can hear that whole village experience just seems so amazing with athletes from different sports as well too, when you've been used to kind of being with athletes in your sport. You obviously went on to the Olympic Games in Tokyo with a really clear ambition to win gold, and sadly that wasn't to be. So can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, that experience and how that left you feeling immediately afterwards?
Yeah, it was a very hard experience. I remember qualifying for the Olympic Games. The qualifying experience was so hard. It was so very hard because usually when you go to the Olympic Games, you have 3 chances to qualify. And I remember going to the European Games in, I think it was 2020 in London, and then COVID happened and lockdown happened and we all got shut down. And obviously the Olympics was in jeopardy. Loads of people in Japan were saying that they didn't want to host it because, you know, COVID and stuff. And I just remember that we all got told out that we only have 1 chance to qualify now. It's just going to be the European Games, you know, and if you sell, like, that's it. There's no chance you're going to be able to go to the Olympics. So it was very tense. I went to the Europeans and I got silver. It was a very interesting experience for me. And I learned so much about myself going to the Olympics. There was this girl that I was always used to share with, Charlie. And I remember me and her both managed to qualify, and we were like, every time we walked around, we were like, down at the Olympic Games. It was insane. It was, you know, growing up at like 11 and watching Kate Taylor, Tasha, Nicola, Clarissa Shields at the Olympics, and now you're in their shoes. You're walking out to the Olympic arena. You're walking out to the boxing ring. It's such a surreal moment, such a pinch me moment. So I just look at the positives and the experience as a whole, and it was a good experience.
Absolutely. I think I do sometimes feel, not we get too hung up on gold, but I do think we get too hung up on gold because the very fact of getting to Olympic Games, competing in Olympic Games, you know, sometimes I just think generally within sport, it's still all about the medals, and actually there's so much more to have achieved, to have been there in itself. So I guess in terms of you personally, what did you learn from that experience of perhaps not achieving what you had set out to do so in Tokyo?
I learned the most important thing as a boxer is that being skillful is not always enough, and being good and wanting something as bad as you want it is not always enough. You have to train for it. You have to dedicate your life, and there's going to be people that can do that. So, you know, I always try to imagine that if you're good, there's always going to be someone that's better than you. So what can you do to beat them? And that's what boxing is all about. What can you do to step in the ring with somebody and be able to beat them? What you have may or may not be enough, because they're going to come with the exact same energy. They want to win just as much as you do. They have their own families that they want to, you know, win and bring the medal back for. And And it's not just about you, boxing, even though it is a selfish sport, it really opens your eyes that there's other people who have their own lives and their own aspirations and dreams. And you got to really not just beat them in the ring, but you have to beat that aspiration and their dream and their desire as well as their ability. And I was able to learn that. And that experience of knowing that, okay, I'm a good boxer, but I have to have more than just being a good boxer now. I have to be disciplined. I have to be an athlete, a good athlete. And I'm learning that even now. Today, I'm still making mistakes, still doing things wrong. But I'm 22 and I'm stepping up fast, but I'm still learning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a continual process, isn't it? That is fascinating, that reflection of other people's lives and goals and families. And I've not really thought about it in that way, but that's so true, isn't it? They all bring as much to it, as you do as an individual too. I imagine after that, your next thought would have been Olympic gold at Paris 2024. Was that your initial plan?
Yeah, that was definitely my initial plan. I remember being devastated. I couldn't stop crying. Every time I went to bed, and I would just dream about being at the Olympics. I would dream about the fact that I lost and how frustrated and how close I was and how far I was at the same time. And the first initial response was for me to say, I want to stay on another 2-3 years and go to Paris. I was very young. I was 19 years old and I was stepping in with kids who were like 30, 40 years old. And I knew that I was very inexperienced going into that. So I definitely knew that I could win, and it's just a matter of time. But my dad convinced me to turn pro, so I turned pro.
And was that the right decision, do you feel? You ever had any regrets, or you feel that absolutely was the right decision to make?
For a very long time, I had so many regrets. I wanted to go to the Olympics ever since 2012. I wanted to win a gold medal ever since 2012, and it's like having a dream since you're a young kid and nothing more than to achieve that dream and coming so close and then just letting it go. It's very hard. It is very, very, very hard. And for the longest time, I would lay in bed crying, thinking, I don't want to turn pro. I don't want to do this. I want to stay. I want to achieve that dream because this is what I wanted to do since I was 11 years old. But I decided this guy definitely helped with the incentive and it took some time. But I was able to get my mind around it, and I realized that when I turned pro, I was able to fight for the people that matter most to me, and that's my brother and my sister. And if I was still an amateur, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would only be fighting for myself. But now as a professional, I can fight for them, and that's the most important thing for me. And I can change people's lives as a professional now. And it really is a family situation, because when you fight professional, you're fighting for your family and you're fighting for all those people that truly believe in you and you can help them. Literally, you can see yourself helping them.
In terms of financially, you mean? In terms of money you can make?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And all those things. And I was able to do that as a pro, and I was able to change my family's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is fascinating I know it's very honest of you to state that is the case too, isn't it? You can keep being amateur and have all those accolades, but actually in terms of what impacts and changes lives, that is so important. And what are the differences you've seen as a professional boxer in terms of the training and competing that feels very different to being part of a Team GB setup? How much harder is it, or easier? How different is it?
Well, as a professional, you have to love boxing, and you have to realize that, because being on the GB team, you get all waking up, you go to the gym. It's very much a team motivation situation. Even if you're competing against people, you're motivated to train because you're surrounded by all these other people and they're all pushing you to the gym, they're pushing you to the track. They have the set runs, the set times. All you have to do is turn up. Whereas as a professional, you have to get up yourself and decide to run. You have to physically say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take the time out to do this bit, and I'm going to improve and strengthen on that aspect, and I'm going to be better at that. So it's very much more self-driven now, and I think that's the main difference I experienced. As a professional, there's a lot more technique that goes into the boxing, and there's a lot more spite that goes into it. It's more of a dangerous, I would say amateur is more boxing and professional is more fighting, wanting to hurt your opponent and beat and really do damage to your opponent and get the knockout most of the times. And you're trying to hurt people. You see in fights, people get pushed really hard and they really, really get pushed to that point where you don't really see that as an amateur.
Yeah, that's really interesting, really interesting. And you were part of history last year when you fought at the O2 on the Shields Marshall, the first ever all-female card, and the most watched boxing event, women's boxing event in history with over 2 million viewers. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was very crazy. I remember seeing those numbers after the fight and being like, wow, that was amazing. I'm so happy to be a part of that. Being at the O2 was a great experience, and being at the O2 just made me think that I want to step up quick and I want to be in the mix as quickly as possible. And I think being in that environment helped give me the drive to want to step up and challenge myself. It was a great experience. Being able to see Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall and McKenna Mayer and Alicia Baumgardner, all these girls, it was great. It was really, really good.
Yeah, the whole experience of it was amazing, wasn't it, in terms of the sound and the music around it and everything. And how important has the support of Sky Sports been to your progress?
It's been great, a really good experience. I think they've helped push me, giving me the spotlight, giving me the platform to perform. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah, I sense when I'm talking to you, it's almost like there is this hunger to get on and progress. Is there a balance that you need to almost not bide your time, because clearly you are ready and up for it, but what in terms of the advice around you, is it to get on and to, I feel like you really want to win and be up there at that very top level. How do you kind of counter that and balance that within your life and progress?
Yeah, I guess the fear of failure definitely helps. Knowing that it's all good wanting to get somewhere, but if you get there and you fail and if you lose, boxing is very harsh, and the spectators and the critics can be very, very hard, As the moment you win, it's great, but you lose, then there's a problem. And just the failure inside of it is enough to motivate me to stay dedicated and committed.
Excellent. It's obviously great news that women can now box in the Olympics and professionally, and that the sport's moved a long way from when you first started, even, isn't it, from where it was, but it's still far from equal. So I wonder what you'd like to see change in the sport.
What I like to see change, I like to see the respect, the same respect that's given to the guys be given to the women, You step in the ring and we're fighting for our families just like they are. We give it 1,000%. Just like they do, and then we try our best. And I just would like to see that same respect. There's still sometimes a little bit of non-respect, the respect is not the same. And in terms of where we are placed in the cards sometimes, and you see big world title fights being right at the bottom of the cards or overlooked and stuff like that. But I think it's a matter of time. I think we're heading in the right direction. I think we're moving at the right pace as well, so I don't think it'll be long until that's pretty equal.
Excellent. Yeah, we definitely hope for that. And as you say, it does feel like it's moving in the right direction. And the more profile women's boxing gets and the success of the likes of you and other women that you've mentioned, it's kind of helping to drive that too, isn't it? I think from the outside, your life might look very aspirational to anyone kind of looking in terms of lots of media and celebrating with sponsors and so on. But in reality, how tough is it day to day, the life of a professional boxer?
I would say it's tough because this is what I signed up for. I would say it's hard, the training, the monotonous. When it's hard, it's very hard. The dieting definitely takes a toll. The constant training, and if you get injured, it's very mentally it puts you down, and it could be a very hard sport because you're in the limelight. If you win, it's great. But what happens when you lose or when you don't perform or something terrible happens, and you get so much backlash, you get so much, negativity come from that. Whereas if you worked a normal job, you will get that. And the fact that we're in the limelight is very difficult sometimes. But I would say that I'm very thankful that I'm doing something that I wanted to do ever since I was 9 years old. And I think there's not many people that can say that they're doing something that they wanted to do when they were 9 years old. And because of that, it's a blessing, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful I can do what I love, even though it's got its ups and its downs, and it's very much a very roller coaster, fickle sport. This is what I signed up for. So yeah, I'm very grateful.
That's fantastic, isn't it? I spoke to Molly McCann in the last series of the podcast, actually, and I realised you've still got so much to do in boxing. But is MMA a sport you've ever considered or you would consider?
No, I don't think so. I have a lot of respect for boxing, but I also have a lot of respect for MMA. And I don't think I'm at this level where I can say I can just jump over and just start kicking people. You know, I respect that. That's a whole different sport. That's a whole different level. Boxing's a whole different sport and a whole different level. MMA fighters realize that when they try to go to the boxing, that this is a total different sport. You know, you could be great in MMA, but you step in the ring with an average fighter and it's a challenge because it's a total different sport. And I have the respect to know that, you know, I'm good at one thing. This is my blessing, and I don't know if I can start mixing it in with the MMA hits just yet.
It has been reported, I'd read, there was a bit of family tension in the last 6 months or so, and I absolutely don't want to pry into your personal life at all, but it must be tough when the family's been such a huge part of your boxing journey, especially when you're celebrating something amazing as you were this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always nicer to have someone there than to have them not there. It's always nicer to have support than to not have support. It's always nicer to have support from close ones that know you and been around you since you were little. It's always nice, but that's unfortunately not the world that we live in, and that's not always the case. So you just have to appreciate what you have, and it makes you more appreciative of what you do have when you lose something. So I'm just very thankful that I have my brothers and my sisters around me, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see some of those photographs at the weekend. It's almost like your training and the crew around you become part of that huge support as well too. It's lovely to see you celebrating with those people.
Yeah, definitely. You know, at the gym, it's very close knit. We all see each other day in, day out, training amongst each other. You know, Ellie, Chris, all these guys and the coaches in the team. So yeah, we're getting to that level of closeness. So yeah, so it's always great when we win. We all win together. Yeah.
And there's no doubt that being a pro boxer does take its toll on your body. You kind of mentioned that too, the making weight, you know, getting constantly hit, the intensive training. So does that long-term impact concern you at all?
Does it concern me? I mean, there's always concerns that you may not get out boxing the way that you went in, you know. You may get out a little bit of punch drunk, you may come out with some damages, but I suppose the way you have to think of it, this is the life that I'm living and the life that I've chosen. I have to commit to it. And in anything you're gonna get in life, if I decided to become someone who sits at a desk all day, do an accounting job or writing job or journalism, I'm sure you guys get your own injuries, your back injuries, your neck aches.
I'm sitting up higher now. You've said that.
Yeah, literally. Even my sister, she's does lashes and nails and stuff, and she's always complaining about her neck and her back and how much pain she's in. So I just see it like this is a life, and life is hard. So this is just the risk and the reward that we get.
Absolutely, that's great. And I guess just finally, I wonder how long you will keep boxing professionally, and if you've got thoughts of life after boxing at the end of your professional career.
Yeah, I have so many dreams and aspirations. I hopefully would love to be out of the game by the time I'm 30. I want to retire when I'm 30 years old and hopefully get married and have kids one day and start a family. And I would love to be able to open up a hairdressers and just do, like, when I leave boxing, I want to leave it behind, happy that I left nothing in the ring and have no regrets, and then just move on to the next chapter and do something completely different and not even think about ever stepping back in the ring again.
I love that, actually. It's funny, isn't it? I'm very lucky to talk to lots of athletes who then want to keep in their life. I love that refreshing attitude of actually, yeah, that's fine. I've done that. I'll draw a line and move on to the next chapter of my life.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me know that all the hard work that I'm putting in now, it's not going to be forever. You know, the pain that I'm going through now whenever I'm dieting or training or sparring, I know that in a few years' time, this is going to be over and I'm going to look back and I'm going to be happy and I'll probably even miss it. So just enjoy it while it lasts, because it's going to be over soon, and when it's done, it's done.
I really enjoyed chatting to Caroline, and I can't wait to see what else she goes on to achieve in her career. What a fantastic, ambitious young woman she is. If you enjoyed the podcast, there are over 160 episodes featuring conversations with women's sport trailblazers, and they're all free to listen to on most podcast platforms or at fearlesswomen.co.uk. My previous guests include more elite athletes like Caroline, broadcasters, coaches, administrators, scientists and CEOs from a vast range of sports. The whole of my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport, is also free to listen to on the podcast. Every episode of Series 13 is me reading a chapter of the book. Thank you once again to Sport England for backing the Game Changers with a National Lottery Award, and thank you too to Sam Walker at What Goes On Media, who has done such a brilliant job as executive producer of the podcast since we started it back in 2019. Thank you also to my brilliant colleague at Fearless Women, Kate Hannon. Do follow us so you don't miss out on future episodes, and if you have a moment to leave a nice 5-star rating, that'd be fantastic, as it really does help us to reach new audiences. Come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on LinkedIn, Twitter and Instagram at Sue Anstis. The Game Changers. Fearless Women in Sport.